gather close and keep your phone face down while you listen. Hospitals are full of ordinary sounds people learn to ignore. Elevators sighing open, distant carts rattling over tile, the soft electrical hum of machines doing their best to keep promises human bodies like to break. That is what makes certain things so easy to hide there. Not monsters, not ghosts with dramatic timing, just one wrong sound in a place already crowded with them. Mara Velez worked the overnight switchboard on the basement level of St. Bartholomew Regional, where night did strange things to time and fluorescent light flattened every hour into the same pale, exhausted sheet. At 31, she had the calm voice hospitals liked in their invisible staff. She could redirect a sobbing relative, page a surgeon, explain visiting hours to angry men who thought rules were insults, and do it all while eating pretzels one-handed and filling out incident logs. She had been there 4 years, long enough to recognize every elevator groan, every intercom crackle, every doctor whose requests came wrapped in self-importance and caffeine. The switchboard room was windowless and cold, tucked beside medical records, and across from a locked archive room no one seemed to use anymore. It held 2 monitors, 3 phone consoles, a coffee maker with the morals of swamp water, and a laminated emergency flowchart nobody ever consulted because by 2 a.m., everyone either knew what to do or only pretended to. Mara preferred nights. Fewer smiles to manufacture, fewer conversations she had to wear like borrowed clothes. At night, people were honest in uglier ways. The first call from 614 came in on a Tuesday at 2:17 a.m. She noticed the extension before she answered because 614 shouldn't have been active. 6th floor, east wing, old post-op overflow. Half that corridor had been closed for plumbing work since spring, and 3 rooms on the end, including 614, were marked offline in the system. The display blinked. Mara frowned and picked up. "Switchboard, this is Mara." No answer. Just a faint sound. Not static, not line hiss. Breathing. Slow. Damp. Intimate in a way that made the skin at the back of her neck tighten. "Hello?" The breathing continued for another 3 seconds. Then the line clicked dead. Mara stared at the console. Wrong number calls from rooms happened all the time. Elderly patients leaned on handsets. Confused visitors pressed buttons. Children treated hospital phones like arcade machines. But this was different only in the small, unnecessary detail that 614 was empty. She opened the floor plan on her monitor and checked anyway. Room 614, offline. She logged it as a probable system glitch and went back to sorting transfer messages. At 2:29, it called again. Same extension, same breathing. This time, after 10 seconds, a voice spoke. A man's voice. Calm, hoarse, almost thoughtful. "What time is breakfast?" Mara sat straighter. "Sir, what room are you calling from?" No answer. Then mildly, "They forgot the window." The line went dead. A thin rush of cold moved through her arms. She looked up at the wall clock, though she had no reason to. 2:30. The second hand dragged its way forward with the confidence of something that had never been wrong in its life. Mara picked up the internal line and called the 6th floor nurses' station. After 3 rings, Kim answered, sounding like she was chewing ice or hatred. "East." "Hey, it's Mara downstairs. Is anyone in 614? Silence. Then, "No, that hall's still closed." "I'm getting calls from it." Kim laughed once, not warmly. "From 614. "Yes." "Then your board is possessed, babe." "Can you just send someone to look?" A longer pause. Mara could hear monitors in the background, a call bell, someone coughing badly in a distant room. Kim sighed. Hold. Mara waited, tapping one nail against the desk. On the ceiling above her, something thunked. Maybe pipes, maybe footsteps. Hospitals always sounded like someone moving where no one should be. Kim came back 90 seconds later. Dark hall, locked fire doors, no patient, no nothing. You checked the room? Couldn't. Maintenance has that end chained because of the leak. So no one's in there. No one's in there. Mara thanked her, hung up, and looked again at the blinking console as if it might feel ashamed. It did not ring again that night. By morning, the calls already had the unreal softness of a bad dream. She almost didn't mention them to Daniel, the day shift operator who arrived with turmeric tea and a personality that treated every inconvenience as theater. Empty room, he said. Cute. Very ring. It wasn't cute. It's an old building. It asked about breakfast. Daniel sipped his tea. Then maybe the old building is hungry. Mara didn't smile. He eventually stopped joking and checked the system logs. 2 incoming calls from 614 had registered, time-stamped exactly where she said. He raised both brows, then tried to flatten them back down. Probably crossed lines, he said. Can an offline room have crossed lines? Anything can happen in hospitals. That was not comforting. Wednesday night passed quietly until 1:53 a.m., when 614 called again. Mara saw it blink and felt something low in her stomach seem to open. She answered immediately. Nothing. Then the same breathing. Then, is the light still flickering? Her fingers tightened around the handset. Who is this? No response. Sir, this is hospital switchboard. Tell me your name. Another inhale. Slow enough to sound considered. Did they clean the bathroom? Mara looked toward the closed door of her office. The basement corridor beyond it was always too bright, too empty. The kind of institutional brightness that didn't comfort so much as expose. Where are you calling from? No answer. Then, softer. Don't send the blonde one. Click. For a moment, Mara just held the dead line to her ear. Then she called the 6th floor station again. Kim did not answer. A float nurse named Devon picked up instead, young and already irritated in that specific way people become when their jobs reveal too much about human fragility too early in life. You got anyone blonde on tonight? Mara asked. What? On East. Devon paused. Yeah, Sabrina. Why? Mara almost lied. No reason. Great, love that. She told him about the call. He listened in silence, then said, Okay, that's weird. Yes, but 614 is empty, like construction empty. Can somebody please go look? Maintenance keys are downstairs. Then call maintenance. It's 2 in the morning. Mara shut her eyes. Yes, I know when it is. After a minute of resistance, Devon agreed to walk the hall up to the chained fire doors. 10 minutes later, he called back. No one there, he said. But what? There's water under the door at 614. Mara sat up. From the leak? Maybe. His voice had changed, less dismissive now. Is that all? There was a beat. Then the TV's on. How can the TV be on? I don't know. Who said no one was in there? There's no one in there. I'm looking through the side window on the fire door. I can see part of the hall. Room 614 TV is on. Mara's mouth went dry. What's playing? Can't tell. Static, maybe. He lowered his voice. It keeps changing brightness. After that, neither of them said much. Devon promised to file a maintenance note. Mara logged the incident with hands that felt clumsy and overfamiliar, as if fear had been waiting for practice. At 3:08, 614 called a 4th time. She stared at the display, then answered. This time there was no breathing. Only silence so complete it felt placed there. Then the voice said, very clearly, "You should have asked about the mirror." The line went dead. Mara did not tell Daniel everything in the morning, only that the calls continued, that the TV in 614 had been on, that maintenance needed to fix whatever mess they'd left in that sealed-off wing before somebody ended up on the news. Daniel, predictably, asked if she wanted him to sage the switchboard. She told him to go to hell. He laughed, but not much. By Thursday evening, rumors had already begun climbing the hospital in whispers. Maintenance men always knew things before nurses. Nurses always knew things before administration. And the overnight janitorial staff knew things before God. Louise from housekeeping stopped by around midnight, pushing a yellow cart that smelled like lemon cleaner and surrender. "I heard your dead room is calling again," he said. "It's not my dead room." He leaned one elbow on the door frame. "You know what used to be there?" "Plumbing?" He shook his head. "Psych overflow. Years ago. Before my time." Mara stared at him. "Hospitals always used to be something else before they were this. Sanatorium, ward, charity building, plague kennel, who knows? That is not a real thing. You know what I mean. 614 was psych?" Luis shrugged. "That's what Jose said. Jose was 70 and believed every building had a memory if you hit it hard enough with a mop." Mara tried to dismiss it, but the idea lodged somewhere ugly. An old room, a sealed corridor. Calls asking about flickering lights and bathrooms. It was exactly the kind of nonsense people stitched into a haunting because reality was often too banal to bear without embroidery. At 2:11 a.m., 614 called again. Mara picked up on the first ring, already angry enough to be reckless. "What do you want?" A pause. Then, almost politely, "Are you alone down there?" Her whole body went still. She looked automatically at the door, the frosted glass panel, the slice of brightness beneath it. "This line is being traced," she lied. "Are you alone?" The voice sounded older tonight, thinner, as if it had moved farther from the mouth using it. Mara swallowed. "Yes," she said before she could stop herself. There was the smallest sound then. Not laughter, not quite. Approval, maybe. "I know." The line cut. Mara stood so fast her chair rolled backward into the filing cabinet. For the next 10 minutes, she did not sit. She checked the corridor twice. Empty. She checked the security monitor feed that displayed the basement hall. Empty. She called security, and when the guard on duty arrived, a bored man named Coulter with shoulders like a refrigerator and all the spiritual sensitivity of a parking meter, she heard herself explaining the calls in a voice too precise, too careful, the voice people used when they feared sounding crazy more than they feared the thing itself. Coulter checked the corridor, the archive room, the maintenance closet, the stairwell at the end of the hall. Empty, locked, still. "Probably someone rerouted a line," he said. "To ask if I'm alone?" He shrugged. "People are weird." After he left, Mara sat back down and realized her palms were wet. At 3:02, Daniel texted her a meme about hospital ghosts billing insurance. She did not reply. Friday brought rain, real persistent rain that made the city outside dissolve into a dirty silver blur. Hospitals changed in rain. Every light looked weaker. Every hallway sounded more hollow. Stretchers came in wetter. Shoes squeaked more sharply, and the whole building seemed to pull inward around its own fluorescent bones. Mara arrived at 10:45 p.m. and found a note on her desk in Daniel's looping handwriting. "Board glitches on 6 East again. Logged 3 phantom transfers. Have fun in hell." Underneath, a smiley face. She crumpled the note and threw it away. The first call came unusually early, 12:36 a.m. Switchboard. "Mara." The voice used her name so naturally she nearly answered yes, the way people do without thinking. Instead, she said, "Who is this?" "I'm Cole." For the first time, something in the caller's tone sharpened. Not fear, exactly, but discomfort, almost confusion, like a patient awakening from sedation into the wrong room. "Sir, where are you?" No response. Then, "I can hear the carts." Mara looked at the ceiling. Somewhere above her, very faintly, wheels rattled across tile. Her stomach turned over. "Are you on the 6th floor?" Silence. Then, quietly, "You never asked the right thing." Click. Mara called security again. This time, she insisted someone go to 6 East and open 614. She used words like active line, possible trespasser, liability. Coulter resisted for all of 30 seconds before the word liability did its noble work. At 1:05, he radioed back. "Maintenance is meeting me upstairs." Mara left her chair before she understood she'd made the decision and took the service elevator to the 6th floor. The doors opened to antiseptic air and low hospital night noise. IV pumps chiming in distant rooms, muted television voices, slippered footsteps, a patient moaning through sleep, somewhere far enough away to feel indecent. At the East Nurses Station, Devon looked up from charting with immediate disapproval. "You're not supposed to just come up." "Then stop making me curious." Coulter emerged from the far hall with the maintenance tech named Aaron, both carrying the expression men wear when they are annoyed to be participating in something they've already decided is stupid. The closed section of 6 East waited beyond heavy fire doors with wired glass windows. The hallway past them was dark, except for emergency strips along the floor. At the far end, room 614 glowed blue-white around the edges of its curtain. The TV was on. Even from here, Mara could see the flicker. Aaron unlocked the chain, swore about paperwork, and hauled the door open. A smell drifted out immediately. Stale dampness, old plaster, something mineral and faintly sweet under it. Not rot. Worse, somehow. Abandonment. They walked in single file down the hall. Mara hated that she had come. Hated more that she could not bear not to. Some of the ceiling panels were missing. Yellow caution signs stood uselessly in puddled areas where the old leak had darkened the tiles. Room 612 was stripped bare. 613 had its mattress propped against the wall, like a body trying to stand. At 614, Coulter pushed the door open with one heavy hand. The TV in the corner hissed with snowy static. No patient. No intruder. No one. The bed had been removed months ago, leaving only ghost marks in the floor where wheels had rested. Plastic sheeting covered part of one wall. The bathroom door stood ajar. Aaron went straight to the TV and cursed. "This thing's unplugged." Everyone looked. The cord hung loose behind the stand. The static continued. Coulter moved first then, stepping fully into the room, because disbelief always gets bolder when it wants to prove itself right. He circled the stand, checked the outlet, looked behind the set, and finally yanked the entire television away from the wall. Still, the static kept humming from the screen. Mara became aware of her own breathing sounding too loud. Then Devon, from the doorway, said, "What's that?" He was looking at the bathroom. Not at the door, at the tile just inside. Across the floor, in a trail leading from the shower drain toward the threshold, were wet footprints. Bare, small. No one spoke. Aaron took one hesitant step toward them, then stopped. The prints were wrong in a way Mara's mind refused at first. Not reversed, not deformed. Just too long through the arch, the proportions slightly off, as if someone had described a human foot to a machine, and the machine had tried its best. Coulter swore under his breath and pulled the bathroom door wide. Inside, cracked mirror, dry sink, stained tub. No one. The footprints ended at the threshold. The TV crackled louder. Then the static thinned, gathered, and a voice came through the set. Not a broadcast voice, not distortion. A man's voice, low and hoarse and familiar now. "Did you clean it?" Devin made a noise like he'd been punched. Aaron backed into the hall so fast he hit the IV pole abandoned there and sent it clattering. The voice continued from the unplugged TV. "You left him in there." No one moved. Mara could feel the exact moment terror became something more humiliating. Recognition. Because beneath the fear, beneath the impossible static and the wet prints and the dead TV speaking into a room that had no right to speak back, there was a sickening sense that the voice had not called them here to frighten them. It had called them here to accuse them. Coulter recovered first, or pretended to. "Everyone out," he snapped. No one argued. They backed into the hall. Mara was last. Just before she crossed the threshold, the voice from the TV said, very softly, close enough to feel spoken at her ear, "You still haven't asked about the mirror." She jerked backward into Coulter, who swore, grabbed her arm, and half-dragged her down the corridor while Aaron locked 614 with shaking fingers. Back at the nurses' station, nobody could quite behave like adults. Devin kept over-explaining normal things. Aaron demanded to know who had rigged the television. Coulter said nobody was to repeat anything until facilities and administration reviewed the room. Kim came out of a patient room, took one look at their faces, and said, "Oh, good. Now you all look haunted too." At 3:10, the hospital administrator on call arrived in a blazer over scrubs and listened with the severe patience of a woman already planning which phrases would become liability language by dawn. By morning, 614 was sealed again. By noon, all mention of it had curdled into official vagueness. Equipment malfunction, stress reaction, improper access of restricted area. Mara was told, kindly but firmly, to refrain from discussing unverified incidents with non-essential staff. She nodded. Then that night, the calls began again. Only now they didn't come from 614. They came from everywhere. 612 at 104. East Utility at 123. An old exam room number from a wing demolished 3 years earlier at 141. Every time she answered, there was either breathing or silence, or one calm question. Who moved the bed? Did they tell you what happened in the shower? Why did the blonde one lie? At 218, the extension displayed not a room number, but her own internal station ID. The call was coming from her desk. Her hand hovered over the receiver. It rang again. And again. Mara answered. For the first time, the voice did not sound hoarse. It sounded rested, clear, closer. "Mara," it said in her own voice, "the mirror wasn't for looking." The line clicked dead. Something inside her gave way. She stood up, knocking over her chair, and went straight to the archive room across the hall. Locked. Always locked. Records had been removed from it last year, but nobody used it now because, according to Daniel, the ceiling leaked and the vibes were terrible. She did not know why she knew the answer was there, only that the voice had spent 3 nights pushing her toward one small, ugly certainty, and she was suddenly too frightened not to obey it. She found the master key ring in the emergency drawer, hands numb and clumsy, and unlocked the archive room. The door stuck, then gave. The smell hit first. Old paper, mildew, dust, and beneath that, bleach. The room beyond was mostly empty metal shelving and boxed files. At the far end, leaning against the wall and half covered by a gray tarp, stood a large rectangular object. Mara walked toward it with the sick reluctance of someone approaching the shape of her own answer. She pulled off the tarp. A mirror. Tall, institutional, bolted once into some older ward bathroom or patient room. Its edges were rusted. One corner had a long, dark crack through it, like something pressed from the other side too hard and too often. Taped to the back was a faded inventory sheet, removed from room 614. Below that, barely legible in older handwriting, "Do not reinstall." Mara stared at her reflection. Fluorescent light washed her face pale and hollow. Her hair hung damp around it from the heat of fear. Behind her, shelves, boxes, door, nothing else. Then the reflection smiled. Not wide, not monstrous. Just a small, private smile she had never made in her life. Mara stumbled backward so hard she hit the shelf behind her. In the glass, her reflection did not move with her. It remained standing close, one hand lifted, fingertips pressed lightly to the surface from the inside. Then, in her own voice, it said, "I was calling from wherever they left me." The switchboard outside began ringing all at once. Every line, every extension. A shrill mechanical chorus filling the basement corridor like alarm bells in a submerged church. Mara ran. She did not remember grabbing her bag, did not remember taking the stairs 2 at a time instead of the elevator, or shoving past Luis on the second-floor landing while he called her name. She only remembered the ringing pursuing her, not physically, not through air, but through her nerves, as if every unanswered call in the building had learned the shape of her and was following. She quit the next morning. Administration offered leave, then counseling, then language that sounded like money without apology. Mara refused all of it. She packed the framed photo from her desk, the good pens she had bought herself, the little succulent Daniel kept forgetting to water, and she left St. Bartholomew without looking back at the building. They told people she resigned for personal reasons, which was true. For months after, she could not answer unknown numbers. She unplugged her landline, though no one used landlines anymore. She covered the mirrors in her apartment at night like an elderly widow in a house with bad history. Therapy gave her terms: acute stress response, dissociation, suggestibility under cumulative sleep deprivation. She took the terms because they were tidy and required no belief in anything except the nervous system's talent for betrayal. Then, slowly, life resumed. That is the filthiest thing fear does. It lets normality return just enough to make you feel stupid for surviving. 6 months later, Mara was working reception at a dental office in another part of the city. Bright walls, daylight, no overnights, no sealed wings, no switchboards old enough to have secrets. One rainy Thursday afternoon, while confirming appointments, she saw an internal call light blink on the front desk console. Extension unreadable. Just static where the number should have been. Her mouth dried instantly. The office around her remained perfectly normal. Printer humming, soft instrumental music, someone laughing in the hallway. The light blinked again. She stared at it until her vision blurred. Then she answered. Silence. No breathing. No static. Just a pause so deep it felt patient. Then, in a voice that sounded exactly like Mara, only calmer, wiser, almost affectionate, it asked, "Did they ever tell you who was using the mirror first?" The line went dead. She still does not know, and that perhaps is the darkest part. Not that something impossible called an empty room. Not that a mirror kept a voice after a man was removed from it, or that a hospital sealed a corridor and hoped tile and policy could bury whatever had happened there. It is this. Some nights when Mara wakes in the dark and checks the black square of her bedroom doorway, she has the unbearable feeling that the thing calling her was never trapped in room 614 at all, only reflected there, only waiting for someone lonely enough, tired enough, obedient enough to keep answering. So gather close, and remember this when the world is too quiet and your phone lights up from an extension that should not exist. Not every call wants a conversation. Some only want to know if you're still listening.